G'day everybody, I'm Professor Andy Marks, Executive Director of the Centre for Western Sydney, and I'm here with...
My name is Naveen Gautam. I'm a current Master of Social Work qualifying student here at Western Sydney University. I'm also representing a postgrad student in Academic Senate of Western Sydney University.
Okay, Naveen. So we have the Australian election coming up pretty soon, and Western Sydney is always a very important influence on the outcome. As an international student, you're not able to vote, but international students are always a big issue around election times, so is the migration debate and other issues. What are your views on the election and particularly about policies around international students?
As you mentioned, the election is almost a couple of months away, and like all the general public in Australia, international students are also worried what's going to happen if new government come to the power, or even what will be the migration policy and the policies for international students, even if this same government stay on power. So that has been always the hot topic within the international cohort as well. But in my views, because of the fluctuation in the policies that Australia has implemented over the past couple of years, particularly within the international student, lots of students are a bit worried and anxious about what's going to happen next, because migration policies are changing rapidly. So we just want to be in a safe side, and we want to plan ahead. But with the rapid changes with the migration policies, it is hindering us to adapt with the quick changes. So international students are watching it closely, but bit anxious and worried what's going to happen next.
So, Naveen, it's the uncertainty around international student policy settings that is the biggest factor for you?
Yeah, that's correct. But because as I'm living here in Australia from past 7 years, what I feel is the community is very welcoming. There is not much issue with the crime rates and other things that we often see in other developed countries. So there is no doubt that this is a perfect place to live. But as an international student with temporary visa, as a temporary visa holder, the visa will be the topmost priority for us.
What do you think about the way in politics international students have been spoken about? Do you think it's been a fair portrayal of international students from both sides of politics, or would you like to see them speak about international students in a different way?
What I see as an international student is Australian politics has always used international student based on their circumstances. For example, during the COVID period where there was a scarcity of workforce, they just open unlimited work right for international students, right? But when it comes to after post-COVID period, when lots of Australians were struggling to find the job, they reduced it back to 24 hours. So despite of the different political parties, student has always been a tool to use in an emergency, just like army.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
So that again, it comes to the uncertainty to the student.
Looking at international students as an issue in affecting the economy, we know that international students are a very big export earner for Australia. Do you think that Australian politicians, particularly at election time, draw enough attention to that fact?
It has been a hot topic always in Australian politics and within the education system. But what I feel is even at this moment of time, I don't think not only international students are worried and upset with the government, even the Australian citizens who are part of Australian education system and international education system are a bit worried and uncertain about what's going to happen next. But from government perspective, I think it should be more clear policies because this is something that is boosting the national economy as well. This sector is not just all about getting new immigrants. It's also about, it is third largest contributor to the national economy,
Yeah.
right? So, all the international students are paying tax as like an Australian citizen. So we are not just here earning money and sending back to our home country. We are pretty much, most of the international students, they earn money and spend it within this country. So yeah, I think more reform is needed from the government end, and as we don't vote, so I don't think our voice is hurt. It's not hurt much, but it's also not only us. It's also about the whole sector.
Okay, now we're going to turn a little bit to your experience of elections internationally. We know in the world at the moment, voting patterns are going through a bit of upheaval in the US and in parts of Europe. What are your thoughts on the way that we do elections in Australia and on democracy in Australia compared to international experiences you've had?
The place where I come from, it's more democratic here compared to Nepal. As you know, in the developing countries like Nepal, India, there is still lots of things happen during election. Not much transparency, not much fair policy. One thing that I was surprised when I came to Australia was, if you don't vote here in Australia, you have to pay fine.
Yeah, compulsory voting, of course. Yeah.
Which is not what we see back in our home country, and there is still maybe because of that rule as well, compulsory voting rule as well. I think lots of people go and vote here, but it's still there is a fluctuation here. People don't decide based on their electoral candidate. They decide on the overall policy of the specific party. But in our home country, it doesn't happen like that. It depends on what's the weight of that individual candidate in your electoral.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter much about the whole policy of the party. And
It's about personalities
yeah,
and individuals.
So always there is lots of drama going on. But here, I think it's more fair because at the evening day of the election, you will find out who is the next prime minister, which is, I find it very cool because we have to wait at least 2 to 3 weeks to find out who's going to make the election back in our home country.
Okay. Well, that's interesting to learn about those differences. If you were a citizen in this country and you were able to vote, and if you could speak to other citizens in this country, what would you encourage them to think about as they're thinking about how they'll vote in Western Sydney?
As a social work student, I always think that the individual person is the decision maker for their own. So definitely, I can't vote anyone to vote any particular party that I might be interested or influenced by. But what I would have advised the particular person is like, think about the government or the party that gonna make a difference in your life, or that can work in a better way for the whole Australians. Not only about economy, it can be about the community, the social cohesion, because as in multicultural country, the new culture we are emerging, new culture are emerging day by day. So if we do not focus much on social cohesion, it's gonna be chaos in next couple of decades, just like how it's happening in other countries around the world. So that's another thing what we need to be aware as well, like thinking about not only about respecting the different cultures, but also about respecting different perspectives, being democratic. So I think that's important for the next coming years. So I will definitely advise everyone to vote for the party or the person who strongly advocate for the social cohesion, the peace and prosperity for this country, and definitely the community unity and collaboration within the other countries. And all we want is peace and prosperity.
Fantastic, Nabil. It's great to get your insights. Thankfully, there's always elections occurring somewhere in this country, so we'll definitely get you back again to give your perspective. Thank you.